Hey there, John here. How long should your content be? It's a really tough question to answer in this content publishing business. I mean, we've got two goals, right? We want to rank #1 in Google with every article we publish. Not going to happen, but that's what we want. We also have readers, and we've got to serve the readers, and we've got to get to the point. We've got to answer the questions. So how do we figure out in a vacuum how long your content should be? Well, there's a number of things you can do. You're never going to know perfectly, but this video is going to step you through exactly what I do in a variety of scenarios, which are where you're getting your content from, exactly how I figure out how long each article should be. And the range is big. Let's dive in. How long should your content be? I am going to tell you to err on the side of ranking if your goal is to rank #1 in Google. If that's not your goal and you just want to serve readers, then stop watching this video. You don't need it. You can just write whatever you think is needed and call it a day. If you want to rank #1 in Google, keep watching. Err on the side of ranking generally. That's my approach because most of my traffic comes from Google. I'm going to tell you point blank right now, generally speaking, for the most part, in most niches, your articles are going to range between 1,000 and 2,500 words to rank. There are going to be articles that are going to exceed 2,500. There may be some that are going to be under, but generally this is the range. This is my range right here. This is the sweet spot right here, okay? And you know, you can actually target fairly competitive keywords with, you know, on the lower end of the spectrum. The point is falling into this range is going to give you enough word count to thoroughly cover most topics well enough to get a chance to rank in Google. Remember, word count and content alone is not the only thing that's going to get you ranked in Google. Many other factors. I'm not going to cover that in this video. We're talking about word count. You hit this range, you're a contender for ranking #1. All right, but we do have a bunch of situations in terms of how do we figure out, or how do we deal with word count when we're getting content produced. Okay, now if you're writing yourself, that's easy. You're going to know your range, you're going to know the topic, you're going to write it, and you're going to write what's needed. Very simple. It's really the same with situation 2, where you do the outlining and then you assign the article. Once you have an in-depth outline, generally the rest of the article, you're going to know fairly quickly and easily how long that article should be. So that's pretty simple right there if you're already falling in the 1,000 to 2,500 word range. Now, if you're outsourcing to an agency where you submit your article and to a big pool of writers and they're just picking it up and you don't know who's picking it up and they're writing it, you have to tell them in advance how many words you want, okay? Now, if all you have is a topic and you haven't done the outline or anything like that, that's a little bit of a tricky thing to figure out, okay? Especially if you're fairly new to this. So you've got to start figuring out. Now, remember, I err on the side of probably too long. And that served me well. I've probably spent way too much money on content, or more money than I should have, but at least I am getting rankings. So when you're dealing with an agency, it's going to be a bit of trial and error, and I'm going to suggest some solutions to this little issue further down in the video about how to deal with outsourcing and word count. But generally, you're going to have to make your best guess. And a lot of times writers will come back and say, listen, you know, here's the topic. There's no way I'm going to actually complete this topic with the 1,200 word budget you've given me. Can you approve 2,000 or whatever? I appreciate it when they do that, and I always will increase that budget, and I'll trust them that they know what they're doing. Okay, outsource in-house. If they're good writers, they're going to nail it. I work with 3 in-house writers. I really don't have to suggest word count to them. I mean, I've given them the range sort of when I hired them. Generally, the range was about 1,500 to 2,500 words. They almost always come in at 2,000 plus for the content they're writing. Now their in-house writers are exceptional writers, and they're writing on the more complicated, more comprehensive topics. So that's what they're doing, and so content will tend to be longer. So one quick and easy way that I have found to come up with some idea of a word count is to use what's called a content optimizer. Now, I use MarketMuse, and this is a screenshot of MarketMuse for the keyword blogging versus vlogging. Now, MarketMuse gives a target of 1831 words. The average is 1945 words, okay? This is not perfect. No software is perfect in the SEO game. It just is a tool, and I use this tool. And here's the thing. for outsourcing, in-house writers, myself, whoever, I have given them access, login access to MarketMuse. Every article that's getting produced right now is getting run through here with a specific keyword, and we are following the target or the average word count. Is it perfect? No, but it is helpful. And in fact, I'm using this before I'm actually ordering the articles, so I can actually have a somewhat of an idea of how long the article should be when I'm ordering it up with the writers, especially in the agency or with writer access. Okay, now in-house, I have the writers do this, and that gives them, and they can control it, and I trust that they're going to write what's necessary. But when it comes to having to come up with a word count in advance, I use this, and I rely on it for the most part. I find it very helpful. It's a quick and dirty solution to this problem. Now, we could do further analysis, of course. Okay, now the obvious one is, well, what's ranking number one in Google, and how long is that article? Okay, that's a super easy thing right there. Why not do that if you're completely clueless and have no idea and want to know? That's a very quick solution. The other good solution that I have found that works for me is what's working on your site. Okay, as you go along in this business and your site is growing, you're going to notice that you tend to do a lot of the same types of articles, whether they're product reviews, whether they're comparisons, whether they're question and answer, and so forth. Every article is going to fall into a type of format, right? And there are a lot of them, but eventually you're going to notice that your site performs well for a particular type of articles, and so you're obviously going to do more of those, and you will get a sense of how long the articles are that are ranking within those different types. Okay, so if you do a lot of comparisons and you have, it ranges from anywhere from 600 words to 5,000, but you've noticed your best performing comparison articles are between 1,500 and 2,000 words. Well, there you go. You got your answer there. Every time you order a comparison article, boom, you know that it needs to be between 1,500 and 2,000 words. Now, again, there will be exceptions. Maybe you're comparing 4 products and it needs more of a write-up, but generally speaking, that's how I go about it. So it's not like I just started my website and I magically knew how long my content should be. I had no idea years ago, but what I've done is I watch what's working on my site. I tend to focus on particular types of articles, and then within those types, I look at the word count that's ranking the best, and there you go. I have a very solid range that's going to give me, I think, a pretty good chance at ranking. So I really suggest that you actually look at your own website data, see what's working, and work from that. Okay, the reason I actually like this number 2 more than number 1 is because there are so many other factors that's at play here that's independent of the word count. Like, for instance, maybe it's an article, it's a 600 word article that's ranking, but it's by Forbes.com, or it's by some mammoth magazine site that has tons and tons of authority and could probably rank for almost anything. And if you did that same 600 word article, you're not going to get anywhere, right? They have other advantages. And so you have to take what's ranking number 1 with a grain of salt. And that's where we're going to run into problems with those content optimizers like MarketMuse and Surfer SEO and others, in that they really are just analyzing what's ranking and then coming up with a suggestion. They all use different algorithms and calculations to make those suggestions, but really they're off of what's already ranking. And so basically, this is a very quick and dirty format of the content optimizer, and so there are many other variables that we don't enjoy. So, working off your own site, if Google's ranking such and such on your site, then that's really good data in my view. So, I prefer this actually when it comes to figuring this stuff out. The other consideration, of course, is potential return on investment. This is tricky. I'm putting it out there because it's put to me a lot, like the economics of this entire business, and they'll say, John, well, let's see, a 3,000 word article is going to cost me, let's say, $250. And the potential keyword search volume for that is 50 a month. should I go for it? Will it pay off? Well, it's an impossible question to answer because on many levels, depends how long you're going to be number one. Do you get to number one? How many other keywords are you going to rank? What is the actual real potential traffic for the article? How much do you earn from ads? Is there going to be an affiliate link? So it's impossible for me to answer that question. I think as you grow your site, you're going to get a much better idea of what your potential ROI is for articles. Like for instance, I can go to any of my sites with half decent traffic and I can look at what is the average number of visitors from Google that I get across a site each month. Okay, well, it's 350. And so I can use that number as sort of an estimate as to how much I'm going to make from each article on average. And I know on average what the average revenue per 1,000 visitors and all of that. So I can make some best guesses. But again, averages are not that great because there are some articles that earn 10 times what other articles earn. And you can miss opportunities if you do this as well. So potential ROI is something to be used judiciously. I think it's a consideration, but I tend to favor low search keywords because in my experience, I've noticed that you're going to end up with a lot more traffic, usually, often, not always, than what's indicated by Ahrefs and other search tools. But still, am I going to pour $1,200 into an article that has a search volume of 50? No, I'm not going to do that. Would I pour $1,200 into an article if I'm really swinging for the fences that has the potential to earn $500 a month for the next 5 years? Yeah, I would, right? So ROI does come into play when we're looking at extremes. The next part of the analysis is for the writer, if you're hiring writers, or it's for you. And you have to consider, is the additional content relevant? Okay, so let's say, you could do a perfect answer or provide the perfect information for within 750 words, but your analysis is showing that really you should probably be up to 1,400, and so you need to add additional topics. Well, you need to assess, is that additional content very, very tightly related and relevant to the article itself? Because if it's not, you could be doing your article a disservice. You could actually be confusing Google, and Google might not even recognize the article for what you're trying to rank for because you've got this other content that's not relevant. So you need to really think about this. If you're going to add content, you need to make sure that it's very, very relevant to the article itself. And that's, again, where content optimizers can come into play, such as MarketMuse and Surfer SEO, because they will suggest additional keywords and topics that should be included in that content. Again, not perfect, but it can be helpful. And then there's number 5, and this is very subjective, but if you were going to do the search for the keyword that you're writing about, what would you expect in the article? What would you want to see? I ask myself this a lot with a lot of the work I do is, well, what would I like? What would I like in the article? And so I often will go from that. And so that should be a consideration. Okay, so we've addressed obviously some problems and approaches and scenarios, but now we've got solutions. And most of these solutions really pertain to when you're actually hiring writers, okay? In terms of how can you basically automate the content production and not have it all get botched up with wrong word counts and nothing's ranking and everything's a mess. Okay, well, again, nothing's perfect, but you can create systems, and that's what I've done. The first one is the content optimizers. Talked about this already a lot. I do rely on them. And you need to get your writers, whether they're in an agency, whether it's a service, and whether it's your in-house or whoever is writing, you need to get them access to the content optimizers. Get them to use it. Why should you use it? Get them to use it. Be clear up front that part of the writing for your projects includes having to use the content optimizers. So it may take a bit of legwork. I had to create a whole bunch of different login accounts for MarketMuse, and that took a bit, and so forth. And then the writers needed to be assigned all that. And so, yeah, that wasn't a lot of fun, but now all the writer access writers have access to MarketMuse and they're using it. And so I don't have to use it myself. All right, so there's another solution is, generally speaking, you could provide a base word count based on your best experience, and I would go off what's working on your site. But then you could always have sort of like, well, and then I want you to add 3 to 10 frequently asked questions with answers, okay? FAQ, and they have to be relevant questions to the topic. Again, always be relevant. If you can't find anything relevant, then just call it a day and end the article. But there's almost always stuff you can find that people are asking about with the most obscure topics. So you always give them the base word count that's needed for the article, and then say, okay, and just to be safe, this is sort of being prudent and erring on the side of too much content. Say, I am plus due 3 to 10 FAQ. And, that's going to easily add 500 to 1,000 words. All right, another solution. Now, this, unfortunately, is not really available to everyone, but if you have a sizable site and you're earning quite well, you could look at hiring a content manager and train them on all of the stuff I'm talking about, and they can deal with it. Now, in particular, if you use Writer Access, which I do, you can actually have a content manager in your account there. It's a customized plan. It costs a bit more, but then they will work with all the writers. So you basically provide instructions and word count information and all of that stuff to one person, and then they will deal with all the writers. So if, for instance, I have a content manager at Writer Access, she assigns all the logins to Margamuse, all the different information I need about all the content templates and articles. So that's helpful, but I understand that that's not available to most people in this business. And lastly, in addition to training writers and on content optimizers, if you can, train them on Ahrefs and AnswerSocrates.com. These are Answer Socrates free, Ahrefs is paid, but I train them on how to find questions and how to find tightly related topics on the keyword that they're using to help bolster their article. And most writers have said, wow, this is really helpful. I really like this. Here's an interesting thing I've noticed over the years is writers aren't SEOs. Most don't really know anything about SEO. They don't know anything about ranking. You can't assume that they're going to know anything about any of this stuff. And so when you ask them to write an article, they'll do the research and they'll write it. But when you give them additional tools, I've had writers say to me like, wow, this is really cool. I found this really helpful to help me bolster the article and add a lot more really good information. So these tools are helpful. They're helpful to me. They're helpful to writers. All right, back to the old default rule. Err on the side of longer content. I know it costs more. I know it may not be may not serve the readers the very best, but it's annoying. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that Google tends to rank longer content. Now, of course, there's diminishing returns and you can get to the point of ridiculousness, but generally speaking, Google will rank fairly long content. And that's the way it is. And let me give you an example. I've created a bunch of these pretty cool software tools for one of my sites, and they're really good. And the entire article, the way I keyword and titled it, is like basically XYZ tool. That's it. And so when visitors come, the only thing they really want is the tool. And so I thought, well, I wonder if Google's smart enough to rank these. I did like 30 of them. And I wonder if Google's, so I split tested, and the one I had write-ups done of like 1,800 words for some of them, and then I just put the tool and no content on the other ones, or I like maybe 200 words, just a very brief write-up. And the ones with very little content didn't rank at all. The ones with a long write-up in addition to the tool, those ones ranked. So it's unfortunate, but generally speaking, erring on the side of longer content is going to help you rank in Google. All right, you want to learn more, check out fatsexblog.com. That's my blog. That's where I write other articles. And you can also grab my free course, 6-Figure Baseline Blogger. Just go to the homepage. You'll see it. Can't miss it. Thanks for watching.